October 2011. A quiet street in Long Beach, California. A young couple is walking home. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have ended in death. Three men step out of the dark and ask one question, a question that in this city is never innocent. Where are you from? Minutes later, a man is bleeding out on the sidewalk with a knife wound through his liver. This is not an isolated tragedy. This is one data point in a war that has been running underneath Long Beach, California for more than 40 years. A war between two of the most powerful Crip sets on the West Coast and the Latino gang empire that has fought them for control of the same 20 blocks since the 1980s. This is the story of the Insane Crips, the Rolling 20s Crips, and the Longos. Before we go further, if gang history like this is your thing, subscribe now, because this channel is about to go a lot deeper than headlines ever do. Build the world. Long Beach is not South Central. It has its own history, its own borders, its own rules, and by the late 1960s, it had its own version of the Crip expansion, happening 30 minutes north in Los Angeles. Two sets rose out of the same stretch of East and Central Long Beach, born from the same neighborhoods, the same families, the same streets. For a while, they were not rivals. They were allies, practically one organization, wearing two names. The Insane Crips built their identity around 21st Street and Lewis Avenue in central Long Beach. Over the decades, they split into three generational waves: the original 21st Street founders, a second generation that carried the name forward, and a younger group that emerged in the early 1990s with its own colors, its own symbols, and its own identity within the same umbrella. A few blocks south, the Rolling 20s Crips claimed the territory below 21st Street, stretching toward Orange Avenue. They built a reputation and a culture that would eventually connect Long Beach to the biggest names in West Coast hip-hop. This was a set whose members didn't just shape the streets of Long Beach, they shaped the sound coming out of it. For years, these two sets moved as one. Same enemies, same color, same cause. Then came the 1980s, and Territory did what Territory always does. If this is the level of detail you've been looking for, make sure you're subscribed. There's a lot more of this coming. The split there was no single bullet that broke the alliance between the Insane Crips and the Rolling 20s. What broke it was geography, growth, and the same pressure that fractures every gang alliance in America. Two organizations getting big enough that sharing space stopped being possible. The dividing line became 21st Street itself. North of it, Insane Crip territory. South of it, Rolling 20s territory. What followed was not full-scale war between the two even today. Their rivalry is described by those who study it as bitter but complicated, punctuated by violence but never a total break. They remain, in effect, cousins who fight. Both sets have, at different points, found themselves needing to unite against a common enemy that neither of them created alone. That enemy had a name that every person in Long Beach recognized long before they understood what it meant: Longo. Stories like this deserve to be told right. If you agree, subscribing helps this channel keep telling them. The rise of the Longos, the Longo gang, traces its roots to the 1960s, and unlike the Crip sets, it was never a single, unified crew. It was, and still is, a network. Varrio Longo 13, built from three major geographic factions: the East Side Longos, the West Side Longos, and the North Side Longos. Of the three, East Side Longos grew into the largest and most dominant. By the 1970s, that structure had solidified into a permanent presence across Long Beach. But it was the 1980s that changed everything for the Longos, the decade they formalized their alignment with the Mexican Mafia, La M, and became part of the broader Varrio network that answers to Mexican Mafia authority inside California's prison system. That alliance did more than protect the Longos. It multiplied them. Their reach stretched beyond Long Beach into Bakersfield, into other cities across the state, and even across the border into Tijuana. And with that growth came a level of aggression that would define the next 4 decades of Long Beach gang history. Aggression that, according to those who have studied the conflict, was directed not just at rival criminal organizations, but at entire ethnic communities. Attacks on Asian and Black residents in Long Beach became frequent enough that they gave rise to their own defensive organizations, including Asian gangs that formed specifically in response. And it was this same hostility that put the Longos on a permanent collision course with the Crips. This is exactly the kind of history most channels skip over. If you want the full picture, not just the headlines, hit subscribe. The war over territory and over race. By the 1990s, the conflict between the Longos and the Crip sets of Long Beach had become something more dangerous than a turf war. It had become racialized, a conflict where the line between rival gang member and member of the wrong ethnic group standing on the wrong block nearly disappeared. Nowhere was this more visible than in Wrigley, an area of Long Beach already known for deep racial tension, where Crip territory and Longo territory pressed directly against each other. By the 1990s, the violence in that corridor had escalated to the point that the Longos found themselves fighting on two fronts simultaneously against the Crip sets and against white supremacist groups who had also staked a claim to parts of the same neighborhood. Law enforcement responded the way it always does, with mass incarceration. Long Beach PD sent hundreds of Longo members to state and federal prison through the 1990s and 2000s. But prison did not end the Longo network. It extended it. Behind bars, the same alliances and grudges that existed on the street continued, and the Longos used their incarcerated leadership to keep recruiting from the outside, often pulling directly from local high schools. There were moments where the cycle seemed like it might break. In 2016, after decades of bloodshed, a truce was brokered largely through law enforcement mediation between the West Side Longos and the East Side Insane Crips. For a period, it held. The violence measurably dropped. Long Beach residents in the affected neighborhoods got something they hadn't had in years: quiet. It didn't last. By 2019, the truce had unraveled, and violence returned to the same streets that had briefly gone silent, with new hotspots emerging as the balance of power shifted yet again. If this is opening your eyes to something you didn't know, that's exactly why this channel exists. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. What the war actually looked like behind the statistics. The war between the Longos and the Crip sets produced a specific, documented pattern of violence, one where ordinary encounters turned lethal in seconds, and where the phrase "where are you from" functioned as both a challenge and a death sentence. Court records from Long Beach through the 2010s tell that story in painful detail. A man walking home with his girlfriend, stabbed to death after being confronted by three men demanding to know his affiliation. A teenager riding his bicycle at night, shot multiple times by men who never learned his name before they opened fire, an attack that put him through nearly 2 years of recovery and 19 surgeries. A young man shot in the back in front of his own cousin over a relationship dispute layered on top of gang tension that had been building for years. These were not isolated street shootings. Prosecutors, gang experts, and detectives who worked these cases described a consistent motive running underneath them: retaliation cycles, where one killing demanded another, where racial hostility between Black and Latino gang members escalated ordinary disputes into murders, and where teenagers with no real understanding of the war's origin were the ones pulling the trigger. One string of violence traced back to a single killing: the murder of a young man named Andre, gunned down outside a liquor store. In the weeks that followed, his friends carried out a series of retaliatory attacks against people they believed, sometimes correctly, sometimes not, were connected to the Longos. A man was run over by a Jeep twice and survived with a shattered pelvis. A cyclist was shot and nearly killed. 2 more men were murdered in near-identical drive-by attacks, weeks apart, with ballistics later proving the same weapon was used in both killings. When the shooters were finally caught, the sentences reflected exactly how seriously the courts treated it: decades to life, in some cases approaching a full century behind bars. Not for one crime, for a chain of crimes that had grown out of a single act of retaliation. which itself had grown out of a war that started before any of the men involved were even born. We're almost at the end of this one, but if you're new here, subscribe now, because this is just one chapter in a much bigger story. The legacy more than 40 years after the first lines were drawn on 21st Street, the divisions remain fully intact. The Insane Crips and the Rolling 20s Crips still claim their original territory on opposite sides of that same dividing line. The Longos East Side, West Side, and North Side still operate under the Varrio Longo 13 banner, still connected to the Mexican Mafia's authority inside California's prison system. The truces that have been attempted over the decades have proven exactly what history tends to prove about gang conflicts, rooted this deep, that peace brokered by outside pressure can hold for a season, but rarely survives the return of the same underlying conditions that started the war in the first place. Poverty didn't disappear in 2016. Racial tension didn't disappear. The prison pipeline that keeps recruiting new members from local high schools didn't disappear either. What Long Beach shows more clearly than almost anywhere else in California is that these wars are never really about one street, or one insult, or one shooting. Vespucci Beach, Wrigley, 21st Street, these are just the coordinates. The real war is generational, and it renews itself every time a new 14-year-old is handed a reason to pick a side. The Crips and the Longos didn't just fight over Long Beach. For more than 40 years, they've been rewriting what Long Beach is. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think the 2016 truce between the Longos and the Insane Crips could have held permanently, or was it always going to break down? Drop your answer in the comments. And here's your question for this week. Which conflict do you think has done more long-term damage to Long Beach, the Insane Crips versus Rolling 20s split, or the war with the Longos? If this story gave you something you hadn't heard told this way before, share it, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.